Hi, I'm Natalie Reiners and welcome to the See It and Sew It studio. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about 10 different presser feet for the 5-thread serger. The 10 feet that we're going to be talking about today include the shirring foot, the bead and sequence foot, the elastic foot, the blind hem foot, the piping foot, a Clearview foot, the belting and strapping foot, which can also be used to apply a ribbing to the edge of an activewear garment, the edge joining foot, and the flat trim foot. So those are 9, and then on the machine I have the foot that came with the machine, and there are some really neat things that it can do as well. The shirring foot is used to take 2 pieces of fabric and bring them together. The bottom fabric is gathered into the upper fabric. So this is a wonderful application if perhaps you're gathering a skirt, making a ruffle on a cushion, making children's wear, and the great thing is that it finishes the seam all in one shot. These feet that I have here can be used with a 3 or 4 thread serger. These feet on this side, the Clearview feet, can be used with a 5-thread serger. So all of these feet can be used on the 5 thread, some of them can be used on a 3/4. The bead and sequin foot allows you to attach beads or sequins or pretty decorative trims to the edges of costumes, garments, or even home decor items. The elastic foot is wonderful for children's wear, active wear, or even ready to wear that you're just going to put together with an elastic waist and elastic cuff. This is a great application, and it allows you to use elastic and puts it through for you, finishes the seam, and applies it all in one application, an enormous time saver. The blind hem foot actually does not produce a true blind hem compared to that of a sewing machine. It produces something more like a pick stitch, and it looks really pretty on heirloom sewing, believe it or not. And the nice thing about it is that it can be used for children's clothing. It also finishes the seam and applies the blind hem in one stitch. The piping foot is a wonderful foot to use, accessory to use, when you're applying piping. Now that's the store purchased piping, or you can make your own at home. And this can be used to apply piping to decorative items. It can be used to insert piping in garments, or it can be used for home decor. The Clearview foot is for Coverhem. So these feet are for the 3/4 thread serger, and these are Coverhem. So this is a Clearview Coverhem. And the value of this, above using the Coverhem foot that comes with your machine, is that you can see through it. So you can clearly see the fabric right through this foot. And that's really important if you're doing activewear and you're butting 2 seams up to one another. That way you can see exactly as the fabric is going into the foot where the fabric is and guide it better. That'll give you a much more accurate result. I love this foot. It is the belt loop and strap foot. It makes beautiful straps for strapped t-shirts or strapped tank tops, And it can also provide you with a decorative rib trim that you can use on the edge of, let's say, lingerie, sportswear, activewear, and I'll show you an example of that. And of course you can use it to make belt loops for denim or pants, whatever kind of slacks you want to make. Great application because you just cut your strap, put it through, and it makes the belt loop for you all in one application. It folds it, trims it, and finishes it all in one step. Here I have the fold and joining foot. I use this for home decor, but it could also be used for children's wear or ready to wear. What it does is it takes the upper layer of fabric and it folds it neatly underneath. Then it also applies a decorative trim all in one application and finishes off the fold, the raw edge, and the decorative trim and applies it all in one set. great time saver. So if you're producing napkins, tablecloths, anything like that, great time saver. But more importantly, it can be used for garments. You can apply a beautiful decorative lace trim to a pretty dress and finish off the edge all in one step. The flat trim, unlike the folded trim, cannot do the folded hem. So this one is if you're going to be hemming the finished product, whether that's for home decor or for garments. And the flat trim is really mostly for home decor. So this one, again, placemats, tablecloths, napkins, anything that you want to do, curtains, drapes, anything that you want to do for home decor is ideally used for just a flat trim foot, so folding and flat. And that's the two separate applications for applying pretty decorative trims to your projects. The 10th foot that I'm going to be demonstrating is, of course, the foot that came with the machine. And on the machine, it is a basic metal foot that has 3 separate groove areas. And it also has a slot at the front of it. The slot can be used to apply taping. So if you're making a t-shirt, anything to do with knitwear, and you want to reinforce these shoulder seams with taping, which you should do every time, then use the little slot here to insert that. And the nice thing is it will guide that tape right under the needles, and so you get a very accurate result. And that's essential when you're serging, because you don't want to serge off the edge of the tape. So this actually takes the tape, the blade is over here and the tape is over here, and it'll actually take the tape right into the seam for you. And that's a wonderful ability to, a wonderful benefit of this machine. So I'm going to go through the 10 separate feet, and I hope you enjoy this video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email at info@seeitandsew.com. I'm Natalie Reiners. Thank you so much for joining me. The standard foot is attached to the machine, and this is the guide I was referring to. The blade is inside of here, and the tape is protected from being cut by the guide. I've got the machine set up for a 4-thread overlock, and the fabric is 2 layers of interlock, which is the same that you would use on a t-shirt. The tape that I'm using is a 1/4 inch elastic tape, and it is basically the kind of tape that one would use in an athletic application. So I'm simply going to serge this on and attach it in one application to the shoulder seam. Okay, so here it is, and I've serged this on, and it's now attached to the shoulder seam. It's stretchy so that the shoulder seam has give. If you're working on an application where you don't want the shoulder seam to stretch at all, you just want it to retain its shape, then a plain woven tape can also be used, and perhaps even a narrower tape, just an 1/8 of an inch for the comfort of the wearer. But this is a nice strong seam on knitwear, and it's got a good amount of give so that it can be used for athletic wear. And that's just one application. Again, you could use the same technique to attach a 1/8 inch tape, a woven tape, to the shoulder seam. It's a good idea to reinforce your shoulder seams on any a garment that's going to be used for athletic wear or casual wear, just to make sure that it withstands the washing and the wear and tear on the shoulder area. So that is the standard foot with a taping application. Absolute favorite application for the 5-thread serger, and the one I keep the machine set up for most often, is sportswear. So this is some linen look fabric that I'm going to sew and finish in a single application. So it's just got the standard foot on, got the machine set up with 5 threads, and I'm just pushing it through here. And you can see the machine is sewing a seam and finishing the seam all in one application, just like the professional quality sportswear that you would buy in any good ready-to-wear store. So the fabric basically goes through in 2 layers, a lower layer and an upper layer. The lower layer is going to go through here, and the upper section is going to go through here, and the lower section will be gathered into the upper section. To get that started, I'm going to thread the machine for 3 threads. The differential feed is set at 8, and the knife is engaged. And from here, I'm simply going to take 2 pieces of fabric and stitch them together. This is what the fabric looks like after it's been stitched. And I'm using a 3-thread, and there's the little seam I pressed up. Once I flip it over, you see very pretty ruffles gathered, and that could be used for anything really, curtains, little dresses, blouses. Very quick and easy to be able to ruffle, stitch, and finish the seam all in one step. Is the bead and sequin foot, and to get ready, the machine has been set up. This is the Singer Pro 5, and the machine has been set up with invisible thread on both loopers and matching thread on the needle, and it's just a 3-thread application. So there is the bead and sequins foot, and you can see the part where the beads will be passing through. The lower knife is disengaged, and the settings are differential feed at normal. And so here's the differential feed at normal. Seam width is at normal. And I've taken the length, stitch length, to 4, and I'm using stitch B. So now that the machine is set up, I'm going to put the sequins through the foot. So I've got some sequins here, and I'm simply going to thread them through the presser foot and make sure that they pass through this little groove here so that I can sew them on. Okay, very quick and easy. Just a plain piece of cotton. This would look really pretty on the edge of a costume, or if you're making a nice outfit for prom, something like that. Okay. I'm just making sure that my sequins aren't rolling inside there because I want them to lay flat. Okay, and this is again just the simple 3-thread serge, and just gonna straighten out the fabric there. And the fabric, I'm just
letting it go through right, matching up the edge with the edge of the metal plate, the throat plate. So the foot is just catching the beads and it's threading them through. Got a little bit of a twist here. Okay. Don't want them to go in upside down. There we go. Okay. And these are normal size sequins that I'm attaching to the edge. And there's a size limit to how big of a bead or sequence can pass through here. Coming to the end, so I'm just going to trim that off. And there you have it. Pretty pink sequin sewn to the edge of the fabric. And they are, there's no thread covering because I use the invisible thread, so you can really see how pretty they are. This is an elastic foot, and this foot is really useful for making any kind of athletic wear, anything that involves an elastic waistband, elastic trims, or gathering with elastic. And the elastic foot has several components to it. This screw right here is what controls the brakes, and that's they're inside here. There's a little roller inside that allows the elastic to go in. There's a screw here as well that moves this gauge back and forth, and this screw will allow me to loosen or tighten this, make it wider or narrower depending on the width of the elastic. Now I'm working with a 1/4 inch elastic, which is very narrow, and so it's going to fit in the existing position. Right, so I'm lifting the brakes, placing the elastic through, and then it's going underneath. Can you see it poking out underneath? And then I have to keep that brake released. Then taking my tweezers, I'm going to pull that all the way through. And it takes some fiddling to get started with, so this is a good technique to do. So the Blind Hem foot is installed on the machine, and I'm going to show you a sample that I've already made. Here's an example of the kind of work that it does. So it's not really blind, but But the application is really nice if you're doing heirloom sewing, because perhaps this decorative stitch is appropriate there. I wouldn't use this for a garment where I want a truly blind hem. Machine is all set, and the important thing to do is adjust this screw right here. Just turn that until this bar is in line with the needle, so that the fold of the fabric is resting against here and the needle should be barely catching the fold of the fabric as it's going through. The knife is engaged so that it'll be cutting off any extra fabric. So the fabric has been prepared and it's folded in such a way so that I've got folded and then folded again, and I'm going to put the fabric in the machine so that the fold is resting right up against that guide. The knife will trim off any excess, and I'll just begin sewing. The piping foot is a great accessory for attaching ready-made piping that you can purchase in the store. And I'm going to be sewing this, serging this between 2 layers of cotton. This has a great application for any time you're doing trims on garments or home decor. This is probably one of the simplest feet to use, and it's all set up. The threading for this is exactly the same. I've been using 3-thread Serger Overlock threading for the past. All the feet that I've showed you so far have used the 3-thread Overlock stitch, and this is the piping foot. To get ready, I've got 2 pieces of fabric and some purchased piping. The piping is going to be layered in between the 2 pieces of fabric, making sure that the edges match up nicely. So I'm going to match my edges, and then I'm simply going to insert the whole thing into the machine, making sure that I've got the piping sitting in the little groove which is underneath. So get that down to the knife and even up my fabric. There you have it. Beautiful piping installed between 2 seams. And very clean and easy to use. Perfect for outfits or home decor. And that's the piping foot. This is the Coverhem foot, cover stitch foot, and it's clear. And although the machine came with a cover stitch foot, the clear one allows me to see right through and know what I'm doing every stitch of the way. And that's essential when I'm making things like athletic apparel. So this is just a little sample, and I've taken 2 layers of I guess sweatshirt cotton, and I've layered them, and then I've got a second type of fabric here that I'm using as a stripe, and the Clearview foot is going to allow me to see through step by step and stitch by stitch so that I know exactly where I am and what I'm doing. And I'm going to be stitching on the wrong side. So I'm going to be stitching on the wrong side of the fabric. So on the wrong side of the fabric, I've got lines indicating where that stripe is. And then I'm going to use the Clearview foot to follow this edge very carefully. Okay, so I've got the machine set up so that I can do my cover hem, and I've got the line of that I drew with a washable dressmaker's pencil, and I've got that lined up with the left needle, and I'm going to go ahead and begin stitching, and I'll take a couple stitches by hand first, and then having this clear foot is going to allow me to guide my fabric really nicely so I get a good clean finish. And here is the finished cover hem stitch. Just take it over into the better light here. See a bit better. And you can see it just makes a beautiful finished edge on the fabric. Very much like you would find a high quality athletic apparel that you buy in a store. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other edge, and then I'm going to do the seam. Here is the seam that would be sort of a side seam on a sweatshirt, or could be the side seam on a pair of yoga pants, and I want to be able to see very clearly as I'm pushing the fabric through. So if this was metal, I would not be able to see this line as it's passing through the hem, and I might misguide it. So this is really important when you're making a cover hem. There you can see, put it about in natural light. There you can see the hem. It's not perfect on the wrong side, I can trim it, but it does a great job. The join and fold foot is a lot of fun, and it's used for applying lace or other trims to the edge of fabric. And this, I've done it in a contrast so you can see the edges. I just have to trim that a little bit, but it finishes the edges and stitches the lace in one application while putting a pretty decorative stitching along the edge. This is great for things like tablecloths and other linens around the house, and could even be used for clothing applications for a little girl's dress or something like that. So basically I've got the machine threaded for a 3-thread cover hem stitch, and to get set up I need to make sure that my fabric is folded, but you just want to, you can either press it really lightly with an iron or just finger press it, and I'm going to press it to about 3/8 of an inch and then feed it through this slot where the folder is. So the fabric will go in, fold around, and the bottom layer here is where the lace will be inserted. and that's how it's all going to stitch together. And the machine's going to put all that together for me, so I won't have to worry about basting or anything like that. It's going to go together really quickly. Putting the fabric through the folder, and so the fabric is coming through here, it's folding down and around the folder, and then it's going to come through to the other side. And I'm just going to line up the edge with the needles. Then, taking the lace, I'm going to place that on the bottom level inside the folder. And this is where a pair of tweezers comes in handy. Just raise my foot a little bit extra. Okay. Once that's all set, lower the presser foot and take a couple of stitches just by turning the handle. And using this clear foot, I can actually see clear through that I've got that bottom hem covered with the third needle. And there it is. Triple thread, join and fold edging foot. There's the results. Very pretty. Contrasting thread to show you what it looks like, but very nice if it would have been done tone on tone. Actually, it doesn't look half bad as a decorative stitching as well. For the holidays, maybe red and green and gold, or whatever your holiday colors are, might look very pretty. So that is the join and fold edging foot. First step is to completely ignore the instructions that come with it and cut your strip of fabric. Instead of cutting it at 1/8, cut it at 1 1/8. So I'm sorry, instead of cutting it at 1 inch, cut it at 1 1/8 inches. So 1 1/8 instead of 1 inch, and you'll have a better result. Setting up the machine involves using the the 2 needle wide cover stitch, and all your settings are on N. So make sure all your dials are set to N, and I'm using stitch H, which is the wide cover stitch. All the tensions are just on auto, and I'm stitching on the rib here. Now, another trick that I need to tell you about is the instructions that come with this foot tell you to cut the fabric at a 45-degree angle and then thread it through once this is attached to the machine. there's not enough clearance between here and here. This is actually up. So there's not enough clearance between here and here to work with the fabric to get it to fold. So what I did was I pushed it through using my tweezers. There's a little hole right there that you can see, and I used that to push the fabric through, and then I pulled it through on the other side with my tweezers. You'll need a good long tail at the end of it, and make sure that the fabric is folding under so that the cover stitch is actually covering it. So I'm going to go ahead and pin the ends here so that it's holding in a nice even folded manner, and that's essential for using this. So there are several steps to getting this set up. This is out of the 10 feet that I'm demonstrating to you, this is the most difficult one, but it also can be the most rewarding, because if you're working on sportswear, lingerie, activewear, anything like that, being able to apply a ribbed edge that is stitched on and folded and finished and attached all in one step is an important, efficient skill and ability to have. So it's worth it. It does take a little bit of extra work. So now that this is attached and the fabric is through, I'm going to just fiddle with that a little bit to make sure it's folded smoothly. Since this is actually complicated, I'm going to take a minute and just show you how to fold the fabric through the feeder, because it's not easy, and you do need to take a couple of steps to get it done. The first step is to fold the fabric in half. Remember that this is cut as 1 1/8, not 1 inch. 1 inch did not work. And then I'm going to cut so that I wind up with a point. Then I'm going to thread it. So instead of a 45, the shape of the foot is the shape of the point I'm making. Then I'm going to feed it through, and once it's through, you can see it's already starting to fold itself. And this is the curling that I want to have happening, the folding. That is the point of it. And I'm just pulling that through until such time as I get a good end. Okay. So once that has reached a point where this is the end of the foot, and I'll need about 1 inch or a little more at the end. Now, I'm going to, you can see that it's folding, this side is folding into this side, so I'm going to lay this flat and allow the first piece, which is folding by itself, underneath to fold under. And I'm going to secure that whole thing with a pin, because you would never need to do this in a factory, by the way, if this is just a lot of work. But there are collarette machines in factories that do this, and obviously I don't have a collarette machine at home. You can buy a collarette attachment, and I may be persuaded to do that just because this is complicated, but worth it. Okay, so once that is secured like that, so that one layer is underneath the other and enclosed, then I'm ready to put it on the machine.